December, like the last month of 2023. I don't know where this year has gone, but I feel like it's been insane. But we're excited to join you guys again. Week 13, again, madness. Week 14, I'm sure, is going to be nothing shy of that yet again. I'm here with you guys, Chris Meaney, Sam Choudhury. Do I say your last name right? It's so hard to say.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Yeah.
Look at that. There we go. I
You
felt like
nail
I've
it.
been saying it right. I know you've been on the show like the last couple weeks, but sometimes I second guess myself here.
No, you're all good.
I love it. All right. Yeah, Mike Randall's not here to talk about the Saints yet again. So I'm sure we'll hit on that at some point.
Man, he's more obsessed in the Saints than any of us. That's for sure. Like anytime the Saints get down, there's Saints messages, or when they get up, he's like live bet the opposing team. But
it's
yeah, if
so
he was
funny.
here, he'd be Carolina +6 and +5.
Yeah, I think he got
is.
some decent line movement from when he gave that out, because he was instantly on the 6, and I think you're seeing it now down to 5.5 already. So
Yeah.
Madness with him. All right, guys. Well, the 49ers unfortunately steamrolled your Eagles. Sorry about that, Chris. Packers, what? They beat the Chiefs. Hello. And then a really, really, really tough one for Trevor Lawrence and the Jags. You hate to see it because we were really high on Jacksonville, especially last week, just with the run that they've been on. But yeah, we've got 5 divisional games this week, guys. Let's take a look at what some of those lines look like before we dive into everything. Some good games here. I actually struggled with, when I was kind of prepping, like who I wanted as my money line dog, because I always try to pick one with Randall, and I struggled here. As far as like choosing somebody to win outright. I don't know what you guys' overall thoughts are when you look at this week ahead of us.
Yeah, we've seen a little bit of line movement. You know, the Jags at -3. That was a line before Trevor Lawrence suffered the injury, and it looked worse than what it actually is, but still waiting word. I don't expect him to play this week, but the Browns are now favored by 3.5 in that spot. We've seen also a little bit of line movement with the Vikings are now 3-point favorites against the Raiders with Justin Jefferson expected back. Miami's up a touch at 13.5. Dallas 3 in some spots, most 3.5. I think, in terms of a dog, and I was on the wrong side of it last week, but I still like this Broncos team and where they at. They had a chance last week to have a game-winning touchdown. Russell Wilson threw the pick in the end zone, but I'm not a big believer in the Chargers. And I understand that, the Pats defense is good, but Sam, they scored 6 points last week, man. Like Austin Eckler doesn't look like the same type of guy. Maybe they get Josh Palmer back this week, but I really still like where the Broncos are at as a team, and I think they have more of a chance to make the playoffs than the Chargers. So if I'm picking an upset from here, it's probably one that I'll go with.
Okay. Sam, what about you?
yeah, no, back to the Chargers thing. I mean, they scored 6 points and they covered, which is even crazier to think about.
I know, right?
Just barely.
Yeah, I mean, both those offense. I mean, what can you say? I mean, you're looking at the Patriots this game, this upcoming. This is the lowest total has opened maybe ever. I know it's like some historic if it gets below 30, but yeah, that's ridiculous.
And it is in some spots. It's 29.5. And in fact, before we came on and I saw another 29.5, and I believe it was in the Cleveland game. Yeah, Cleveland and Jacksonville, there's 30 across the board, but there is actually a 29.5 out there at Williams Caesars for this Pittsburgh and New England game. And I don't know, like it probably feels like 29.5 points too many.
Yeah. All right, well, let's dive into one that's going to be a little less than that. I'm pumped about this Bills-Chiefs game, guys. We've got the spread's at 3 points right now? 3.5, 2.5? What did we just see? I missed it. I think a 3-point spread coming off of a loss. The Chiefs are 18-3 with Patrick Mahomes as the starter. Okay, so I liked that number there. I know the Bills defense is struggling. And then remember, guys, this was the week last year that the Chiefs lost, but then they won every single game for the rest of 2022. So what do we think about this one? And Sam, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think, we've sort of seen these holes slowly start to catch up with the Chiefs. We're so used to Patrick Mahomes turning it around late in the season. That's probably why you're seeing 3. You can even get 3 in the hook at some spots. But I think we got to sort of clear our mindset of what this Chiefs team is. Obviously, they're the defending Super Bowl champions. But, I mean, the offense looks completely broken. I mean, maybe they could have beaten the Packers, but regardless, we don't really view Green Bay as this elite playoff contending team, and they hung in there and beat them outright. And then I'd say probably since the second half of the Philly game, I remember coming on the show the last time, and the defense was actually the strength of the KC team. They didn't have to do much offensively, but now we're seeing when they get into spots where they actually do have to push and score points on offense, they just can't get it done. I don't want to question Andy Reid, but clearly Rashee Rice, is your most talented offensive wide receiver. We're seeing age sort of catch up to Travis Kelce, but even him, he's playing 60% of routes. And then outside of him, you got Justin Watson, Sky Moore, MVS. I mean, as great as Mahomes is, he can only go so far. And yeah, Bills are at 500 on the season, but all of our numbers, I'd say, I mean, everyone's number, they're definitely one of the top tier elite teams. They have one of the best point differentials in the NFL. And yeah, they're still sitting at 500. So I think on paper, they're pretty even. I think I'd give a strong advantage offensively to Buffalo. And with the holes that we're seeing on the Chiefs defense, I don't know how far that gap is on the defensive side of the ball. I definitely favor KC's defense over Buffalo, but we saw Aiden O'Connell have success against their defense.
Yeah.
Like Philly the second half, Jordan Love last week. So yeah, I mean, I'll take the 3 with Buffalo.
Okay, so here's a question for you on this one. I was kind of browsing the props on it because I think everyone's excited to watch this game. Josh Allen, our models are showing that there's an edge on playing the under when it comes to his passing touchdowns. Do you like that? There's plus money on the line. Is that something that you would play?
I probably wouldn't. I just want to back Josh Allen. I mean, the way he's looked, just coming off the last game, he looks incredible. He's putting the team on his back. I think if Buffalo is going to go on a run to close the season, it's all going to come through Josh Allen. So I understand where they're coming from because all of our numbers still say Casey's defense is elite, but
yeah,
I probably wouldn't go under on Allen this week.
Yeah, their defense is 9th in DVOA.
I would take the over on his passing touchdowns. I know it's a little bit of juice there at minus 140. I see on FanDuel. I just take Allen every time at 1.5.
Yeah,
I know he has he can certainly run it in, and that would frustrate you. But for the most part, they just don't have a run game. I know they've turned to the run a little bit lately since they fired Dorsey and Joe Brady's taken over, but they still don't have any consistency in their run game. And I would lean on the over on Allen. One thing else I want to say about this game too, like for Patrick Mahomes, I think Sam, you're spot on with Mahomes. Like, he can only do so much. Like, you're just looking at his numbers compared to what he's used to doing, like 7 yards per attempt. It's a career low for him. He's been above 8 every year, -1. Like, even for his career, he's at 8 with this downtick this season, and 260 passing yards per game. He's got 10 picks. Like, he's 3 away from matching his career high. He had 41 touchdowns last year. He had 37, 38 the previous years. He had 50 in his first full year in the NFL, 22. Like, he may not even get to 30. It's which would be remarkable to think about, considering he is the best quarterback on the planet. So I like what Sam is doing here, taking the +3. I think Kansas City squeezes out the victory, but more desperation here for Buffalo in terms of DVOA. I heard Aaron Schatz say that the Falcons are one of the worst 6-6 DVOA squads in history. And we're looking at a Bills team that's also 6-6, but it's night and day between the two teams. Like, they've been a little bit unlucky this season, Buffalo. So the spread, to your question, Abby, is all over the place. It's 1, 1.5, 2. It may be close to a pick 'em before kickoff, but get the alternate odds and just have the Bills keep this as a field goal game.
All right, I like it.
I actually didn't talk about. I didn't get a chance to talk about the underdog, but I think the Buccaneers against Atlanta, for pretty much what you said, is probably the.
Oh yeah, I like that too.
There you go. So. Yeah, that's a good one. All right, Ravens, Rams. The spread for that one, 7 points. Hey, I found this. Ravens are 1-8 against the spread in their last 9 as favorites of 7 or more. Okay, are we laying the points with Baltimore? I know the Rams, they're back in playoff contention, but Lamar Jackson, is Lamar Jackson. What do we think, Meaney?
Yeah, I was going to give Detroit, and I do have in the Bet Tracker 3, and I still think I like them. Keep an eye on the weather this weekend. It sounds like there's going to be a lot of rain and wind in Cleveland, in Baltimore, in New York with the Jets game, really across the board, Cincinnati as well. And that could affect some of these offenses. I just really like the Ravens in this spot coming off the bye. Their defense historically good at the moment, like 4.6 yards per attempt. They've only allowed 10 passing touchdowns this season, which is the best mark in football, 60% completion rate as well, which is inside the top 5. And I have liked what I've seen from the Rams over the past couple weeks. You're right. They're hot. If there's a quarterback that can maybe take on this defense, it is Stafford with the experience that he has. But how healthy is Cooper Kupp? From a fantasy standpoint, he saved your day with a touchdown last week, but he's been very, very mediocre. The run game has been good with Kyron Williams, and maybe that's the one weakness that the Ravens do have. But coming into Baltimore off the bye with Harbaugh and potential bad weather, I think that it's going to be very, very tough for the Rams to score points in this game. So it is a large number. I still like Detroit at 3, but I definitely am in on the Ravens as one of my picks here. And I think you could, if you wanted to, tease this one down with Miami, which we'll get to, and you could tease those ones down to maybe 5.5 or 4.5. And I think you could certainly get both of those ones.
So I like that you brought up the weather, because I feel like there's a lot of intangibles this time of year, especially as we're in December, getting closer to January. You've got the teams that are, talking about playoff contention. Like how much are you guys like factoring that into when you're making some of these plays? Like you kind of take away the numbers a little bit and you're thinking more like, okay, these teams are starting to play with desperation at this time of the year.
Yeah, I think you factor that in a little bit. It's always about the matchups. I think the weather is something we're going to have to keep an eye on because we're recording here on Wednesday and things could change considerably. It's more of like a prop thing for me. It does affect how I view props more so than teams. But in sloppy weather games, I want to see, can a team run the football? And I know that the Ravens can run the football. Keaton Mitchell's trending up inside this offense. Lamar is hitting his rushing props every single week as well. And I know they're going to be without Mark Andrews, but Isaiah Likely's a mismatch as well. So I don't know, let Sam take it away, but maybe you're leaning under on some of these other games as opposed to the over. Like if you're on the fence with a total, maybe you would lean with the under because of some of the sloppy weather, but it's something we got to keep an eye on.
Well, yeah, that's a good segue for you, Sam, because you've got the under in this next game that we're going to talk about. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that and then kind of transition into the Philly-Dallas game.
Yeah, I'll go more into depth when we talk about the next game. But as far as weather goes, I'm not going to try and act like I know the weather better than the bookmakers. I mean, these totals are adjusted for the weather. Like these guys know what they're doing. They're going to adjust it, and I'm not going to act like I have an edge in the weather department. But yeah.
Come on, you mean you're not an expert? Well, you don't study the weather?
I don't, unfortunately.
All right.
Luckily for his next pick, it's inside a dome, so we don't got to worry about the weather.
That's a good point. You're right. I didn't even think about that as I'm sitting here looking at it. Okay, yeah. So in Dallas, Eagles have a chance to, 23-point loss to the 49ers. Chris, how did you feel about that? You good?
Not great.
Not great.
Didn't feel great. Got their butts absolutely handed to them. And I think if there was any question that anybody had about like the pecking order in the NFC, even in the NFL, like the Niners smacked the Eagles in the mouth. They smacked the Cowboys in the mouth. Those are two teams that a lot of people view as contenders inside the NFC. And they have a plus 84, plus 85 point differential against those two teams. San Fran, when they have Trent Williams and they have Debo, they don't lose. That's it. They haven't lost. That's when they tripped up.
And we were last week talking about that too.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, your team might have lost, but I think on this show, we were all on the Niners for pretty much exactly what you said with Trent Williams, with Debo. The team's just unstoppable, and we saw it again.
Answer. Yeah, no answer.
All right. So, Sam, what do you like in this one? I talked about the game total. I think you're still on the under for this one, right? Is it it's 53 is the total?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. You can, yeah. So it's about 52.5 most places. You can get the same one without the 0.5 hook right at 53 at Bet365. I would say it's minus 115. But, take away just the teams that are playing. When you see a 53-point total, you kind of want to look at the under right away. I think the one thing is if you take the under today, I don't think the line's going to – I think the line can only move in your favor. I don't see this total going any higher than 53. I think you're going to get capped out there, which, if it does start going down, you do have a hedge opportunity there. But normally we see these Monday night games or Sunday night. You see the point totals start hammering the under the closer it gets to kickoff. Maybe that's because all the wagers for the Sunday games are over with and it's something to look forward to. But yeah, I mean, unders have been smashing all season long. The only reason the past couple weeks it's been more on the overs is because I think the books have started to over adjust. I mean, we've seen these last couple weeks, you're seeing 30-point game totals. So they're kind of overcorrecting, and that's why we're seeing the last couple weeks the overs start to hit, especially on prime time. But I think the overs hitting prime time recently is pretty heavily skewed on Thanksgiving. We saw all those offenses go off, but yeah, on top of this being later in the season, yeah, it's a dome, so the weather isn't concerned, but game totals do tend to go on the under the later we get into the season. And you look at the trends, divisional matchups always are lower scoring, especially the second time around. We saw a shootout the first time these two teams faced each other, but even then it was a 51-point total.
Yeah.
I think that was around the time when Dallas's offense was really starting to click. And I mean, they scored a bunch of points that game. So regardless, I think Dallas's offense is going to continue to have success. I know Meaney's going to hit on the Dallas team total here later, but it's more on the Philly side of the ball. One reason why we also like 49ers in the spot is because, I mean, their offense looks almost broken. We know Jalen Hurts has been dealing with injuries, but that second half magic that we saw against KC, I mean, yeah, it is in their bag of arsenal, but when you face elite defenses like Dallas, you can't wait till the second half to come back like that, especially with the offense like Dallas. And I mean, Dallas's games have been smashing the over with their absurdly high pass rate over expectation, but you see sort of when the game's out of hand recently that Dallas is still chucking it up in the air and scoring, in garbage time, but I think if they do get ahead with Philly, I don't see their offense trying to, score touchdowns when the game's in hand. I think they would prefer to slow it down if they can get an early lead at home. But yeah, I still feel great about Dallas's offense, not so great about Philly. And we see, I mean, as far as their DVOA goes, it's consistently been on the decline, both on offense and defense. So I'm hoping that Philly can stay competitive. I do think they will be competitive with Jalen Hurts. I mean, you can never count them out, but yeah, 53 point total. I think that if you take the under now, that's only going to come in your favor in the upcoming days.
Yeah, so Chris, you mentioned just the Dallas team total. In all 6 of their home games, the team total's gone over. I know you want to hit on that a little bit, and then also, who are you guys taking in this game? Are we laying points with the Cowboys, or do we think Philly's going to win? Go Eagles. Chris?
I think me personally, I would if I'm getting the 3, I think I'll just take the 3 with Philly. I mean, like I said, Jalen Hurts, it's just hard to ever count him out. Obviously, they looked awful against the 49ers. I do think the 49ers are in tier 1. I would say Dallas is probably the better team right now, but I still think I want to look at the full season and say that these two are in a tier together. So you give me the 3 on any of these teams, I'd probably just side there.
Yeah, there's a -3 out there at BetMGM that I'm on. Most books of 3.5. I could actually see it moving to 4, potentially closer to kickoff. Yeah, I'm on the Cowboys here. I think that I don't want to make any excuses for the Eagles, but they played a lot of football lately. Like they had KC, Buffalo, and then this past week San Fran, when those teams had like 13 days rest and 10-13, and the Eagles, they played all those games like kind of on short rest. They had 96 snaps on defense in that game against the Bills that went to overtime, and then they turned around and they had to play San Fran, who was just coming in with so much revenge. They all wore black. They were just ready to go. And again, the Cowboys have 10 plus days to prepare for the Eagles. And I don't really like where this team is at defensively. And when you just look at Dak and the offense, and some of these numbers are a little bit kind of video game like because they have beat up on some really bad teams, but they're averaging 41 points per game at home. 30, 38, 43, 49, 45, and 41. Dak at home has an 18-2 touchdown interception ratio, 8.8 yards per attempt. averaging over 300 passing yards and a 76% completion rate. On the road, his numbers are okay, but it's night and day, actually, like in terms of passing yards, like 230 versus 309, 65% completion rate versus 76, and just the 8 touchdowns and the 4 picks. And over his career, he's kind of been that way as well. 56 games at home, 114 touchdowns, 34 picks, 8.1 yards per attempt, 270 passing yards, and 68% completion rate. Similar amount of games on the road over the course of his career, 53. Just these 78 touchdowns, like 50 fewer, 37 picks, more picks, 7.2 yards per attempt, and 240 passing yards. And then a completion percentage at 65. He's 5-1 at home against the Eagles in his career. Sam mentioned he lit them up on the road earlier, 374 and 3 touchdowns, 8.5 yards per attempt. I think this game could be tight as well, close. I agree with the under. I really do. Even though I'm coming here with Dallas over 27.5, I do think that we'll still get under 53 because of some of the things that Sam alluded to, the offense. It's not consistent enough. I think they need to get back to their true identity. There's fans at the Philly practice facility today at 6 a.m. holding signs that say run the football. That's what they actually need to do is run the football. That's their identity. Lean on the offensive line, run the ball. And I think that's, we've seen this season when they've had success, they've had long 13, 14 play drives that have killed 7-8 minutes off the clock. And I think that's very important for their defense. Shaq Leonard's not going to be able to help this defense out. They're still very, very thin in the middle of the field. The linebacker play, the safety play, CeeDee Lamb is going to eat them up. Jake Ferguson's going to eat them up again. So I do like Dallas. I still think the Eagles are in a good situation. They could lose this game and win out and still win the division with the tiebreakers. They're still in a good situation here. But at the moment they played, this has been a crazy schedule for them.
Yeah.
It was Dallas, KC, Buffalo, San Fran, Dallas again. Like, this has been a very, very tough stretch for them. They played a lot of football and defense, and they look gassed to me.
I'll tell you what, Chris Meaney's a true professional. He is I don't know how he does it so consistently where he bets with his head and not his heart when it comes to this Eagles team, because he's so good at being like level head. I would be like, no, like,
last year was actually I was the same way last year, but it was wrong all the time. Like, I just they're not this great on defense. Like, they're not going to cover this 7.5, 8.5, 9.5 spread that they had every week. And they made me look silly because they did. But if you remember everybody talking about how the schedule is so weak, it's not the case. They had the toughest schedule according to winning percentage heading into the season in terms of teams' records last year. And you're seeing that here in this stretch. It's a tough go at the moment and Dallas is rolling. Offensively, they really are feeling it at the moment. Cooks, CeeDee, Ferguson, Dak is in the MVP conversation. It's going to be a tough spot for Philly.
If you have low expectations, then you don't get disappointed.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. I'd love to see the W, of course.
Well, what hasn't disappointed is this Miami team who is beating teams by 50, 16, 21 points. So it's no surprise that the spread on this one against the Titans is 15.5. Sam, which way are you going with this one?
Yeah, I think I'm going to take Miami again. I mean, we talked about Miami covering last week. We took them, I think it was 6 or 7 last week at halftime. They covered both. But yeah, I mean, it goes back to what I was saying with Miami. They have this specific scheme game plan early in the games where I think they have their drives already mapped out, regardless of what the other team does, whatever defense they show. Mike McDaniel has this sort of laid it out all for Tua. And I think they are sort of chasing awards here. Obviously, Tyreek Hill is making some serious noise in the MVP conversation. Yeah. You see Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, they're touting Tua for MVP. Regardless, they want to make a statement. You can't tell me that this offense, when they're up by 14 points, they're still hucking it downfield. They're trying to prove something. And you can even see it in the episodes of Hard Knocks. I don't know if you guys watch any of the in-season stuff, but they want to make history. Like, they want to make a statement that, put us in the San Francisco KC tier. And yeah, I mean, you can see it with Mike McDaniel's game plan, even with Devon A-Chain. I mean, that dude, even if you're trying to run down the clock, he breaks off a 65-yarder to the house any given play. So I don't know how you can stop this. I don't know how you can stop this offense. Yeah. On the other side of the ball, I mean, Tennessee with Will Levis, it hasn't been great. They probably should have won that game against Indy, but we saw Indy had no problem moving the ball against Tennessee, and Indy is a decent to good offense, but nowhere near the same level as Miami. So, yeah, I mean, 7 points over a touchdown, I definitely think they can cover.
Well, speaking of Indy, Chris, I know you like this one as your final one for today, but we're looking at the total on this one, 40 points, yes?
Yeah, I want to just double down. I love this play too. This is in the bet tracker. I don't even mind the 13.5. Sam's right, man. They had a fourth and whatever, up 15 points, and they still went for the touchdown. Like you are spot on about the record chasing. Like this team wants to put up points. They put 70 up on the Broncos. They do not care at all. And McDaniel says he doesn't want to run up the score. It's bullshit.
Yeah.
It's just straight BS. He does want to run up the score. Tyreek, these guys want to set records. And Devon Achane is just he's a home run waiting to happen every time he touches the ball. So I love the call, and I don't mind the 13.5 either, but I think this is like a much better play. You just ignore the backdoor cover, so to speak. So yeah, Sam also brought up the Titans and the Colts being able to move the ball on them as well. This is still available. Like most books have 42.5. I think Caesars has 40. I would still take 42.5. Like our NFL model over at ftmbets.com sees the 42.5 as like a 6.5% edge here. And by the way, this is probably one of the largest edges I've seen this year, Sam, was the under in the Philly and the Dallas game. I meant to bring it up. It's like 15.4% edge.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Of the under. We have a projection of 25-18, the final score there. So not even really close to that number, right? Just to go back to it. But this one here, like the Colts, they've been playing some fun football. They're in this thing. I don't believe that the Bengals are, despite the win last week. And if they win this week, they'll feel like they're in it. And you kind of see teams like Cleveland and Pittsburgh slipping. But I think the Broncos and the Bills may be two teams that squeak in there. But Cincinnati, I'm just kind of following trends here with their game totals. Like 59 week 1, 47. Actually, these are the past couple. I'll go in reverse order. Like 59, 47, 13 against the New England Patriots. That's the outlier, right? Pass can't score any points. Defense is solid. 40, 63, 77, 57, 39, 52, 42, 51, and 52. 40 plus points in 10 of their 12 games. 39 plus points in 11 of their 12. And both of these defenses can't really stop anybody. The Bengals are among the leaders in allowing yards per carry, yards per attempt. And you know what? I want to give a little bit of credit to Jake Browning. I was definitely on the wrong side of that game last week. I was on the Bengals. I was on the Jags. I'm out of Survivor now. I'm crushed. I'm so upset about it. But I want to give Jake Browning a lot of credit. Like 354 passing yards against this defense heading into the week. They were the only team that had 2 edge rushers with 30 plus pressures. I just thought that they were going to be able to slow down this offense without Joe Burrow. And Browning had 354 passing yards. It's a very small sample size, but he's got a 75.6% completion rate so far on 78 pass attempts. T. Higgins is back. Jamar Chase is making plays. Right, some of them have been fluky tip passes, but he's still finding ways to make plays for his quarterback. So I think this is too low. I think that this and now keep an eye on the weather, some sloppy stuff. But even if it's rainy and windy, we could see an offensive score. Gardner Minshew is so just all over the place. Like he makes a good play and then he turns it over, he fumbles it. So there's so much that can happen in this game that I think that I would take anything over 44.5. Like I don't think it's going to rise that much, but you can still get the 40 using the prop shop parlay calculator. So that's one of my favorite bets.
Hey, the Colts have gone over in 10 of 12 games too, so that helps you out.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Every game.
And just for the sake of Mike Randall, Saints Panthers, guys, let's do it.
I think all of his hate is on Derek Carr, and I think that's fair.
Yeah.
And if it's Jameis, I think he would change his tune if he was on the show today and it was confirmed that Jameis Winston was the starter. Carolina still can't move the football, right?
No.
Like I was surprised Chuba Hubbard had the day that he did against the Bucs, but they still can't move the football. And at home with the Saints, more desperation, you put that factor into everything. Jameis is better for this offense than Derek Carr. Let's be honest, right, Sam? Right?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, that offense looks broken, but yeah, that's what I was trying to get out of Randall. Like, I always thought it was anti-Carr vendetta, but then when he kept wanting to hammer the Saints, I'm like, wait, but Carr's probably not going to play. Like, do you still feel that way? So I don't know. Maybe we'll have to talk to him when he's on the show again. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to see Winston just go out there and ball out. So
the Saints
the Carr brothers are not having a good week.
No. The Saints have 7 straight against the spread home losses.
Losses?
Yeah. Losses.
Yeah.
Sad.
And their defense, the reason I really like them heading into the season is last year they were top 10 in DVOA defense. And I thought, Derek Carr's never had a top 10 defense. He could just be okay.
And we talked a ton about them. Yeah, like especially for fantasy and stuff too. It was like we were talking so much about them like right before the season.
Yeah. But now all of a sudden, like, Olave had the concussion and then they lost Michael Thomas and now like Rashid Shaheed. Not trying to make excuses for the squad, but it was mostly why I felt like they could win the division, and I don't think it's out of the picture just yet. Is the defense, and no Marshawn Lattimore too, so it hasn't really played up to its standards over the past couple of weeks. But I think Jameis is better. It's certainly going to be better for some of the other options inside this in this offense from a fantasy standpoint. He won't have any problems giving 15 to 17 targets to Olave if needed.
Love it. All right. So no more survivor picks. So I mean,
people could still be in. I mean, just because I'm out.
You can't.
Yeah, I can't. I think we talked about the Texans a couple weeks ago. That's a sloppy weather game. Zach Wilson's going to start. You may have to sweat that one out, but I think they'd pull off a victory there. The Vikings, I think we talked about a couple weeks ago as well, but they could be available. I would imagine all these good, like maybe the Packers, Sam, like the Packers at this point of the season, week 14, you probably haven't used Green Bay.
Yeah, that's probably a really good one. Widely available. I really like that one.
All right.
Oh, cool. One thing I want to ask Sam before we get out of here: 10.5 against Seattle, San Fran. It's a lot of points for a divisional game. You talked about the second matchup between the two teams they just played a couple weeks ago. I still think I kind of like San Fran, even though Seattle showed us something against the Cowboys on Thursday Night Football, like their offense was going. But I don't know if Charbonnet is going to play. I don't know if Kenneth Walker is going to play. They may be down to DJ Dallas. And what we just saw from San Fran and what we talked about it off the top of the show, when Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel play, they don't lose games.
Yeah, it's just like don't bet against the 49ers at this point, I feel like.
Yards per attempt. Yeah, I think that they're just going to roll the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to see San Francisco not covering. I mean, it was encouraging to see Seattle, the way their offense finally looked functional last week. I mean, me personally, I'm almost never touching a 10.5 spread if I am leaning on the favorite side. So this is definitely a no bet for me. But Seattle, I mean, have you guys ever noticed that the NFC West, like every team has like another team's number? Like Seattle can always hang with Seattle always hangs the 49ers. 49ers always beat the Rams. Like they have this like revolving door where every team always has the other one's numbers, like the Shannon McVay thing. It goes back a while, but we even saw in the playoffs. I want to say that Seattle was probably 10.5 to 13.5 dogs. And they kept that game right down to the wire. I didn't think Seattle was going to be competitive there. These divisional games, like when you get a number like 10, I tend to stay away. But if I was just, picking just like where I think these teams are as far as talent and just like relative to the rest of the NFL, I think 49ers are a clear couple of tiers ahead of Seattle. But yeah, it's still a stay away for me with that 10.5 number.
Tease down San Fran, tease down Baltimore, tease down Miami. Those are the three.
Yeah.
Probably get something like plus 170 on like a 4.5 point teaser or something.
All right, guys. Great stuff. May the weather be in your favor this weekend. Sounds like it could be messy, which we love, right? All right, guys. Thanks, as always, for tuning into the NFL Betting Show. We appreciate all of you, and we look forward to having some more fun next week. So good luck to you all this weekend. Chris, Sam, Abby, thank you guys so much.